Welcome to another 21 Hats Dashboard. I'm Lauren Feldman. I'm here with Gene Marks to talk about the things we think business owners should be following this week. Welcome, Gene.
Hello, Lauren.
Great to have you here. As usual, Gene, you've been writing and talking about stuff that matters to business owners. This week, I wanted to start with a podcast that you published last week about why business owners should be on Yelp. I suspect a lot of business owners are kind of surprised to hear that advice. A lot of business owners hate Yelp. They kind of think it's something of an extortion racket. Tell us what you're thinking.
Well, first of all, I kind of learned that lesson as well. Maybe I wasn't paying as much attention. I mean, I spoke to a woman from Yelp all about Yelp. She was very, very nice. We then posted the podcast and then I got shitted on Twitter. Like a bunch of business owners saying we hate Yelp and don't go into Yelp and blah, 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 blah. And I don't know. It's just like, not a, I didn't think Yelp is such a big deal. I mean, I think, it seems like almost if I had a restaurant, I can't imagine not listing myself on Yelp.
Well, that's the thing. It's kind of a can't live with it, can't live without it situation.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a consumer and I go to Yelp all the time as a consumer when I'm out of town in particular, or even in Philly when I'm looking for different restaurant reviews. I realize there's, it's exposed to fake reviews, and I realize there's, I guess there's some other downsides of the system. I mean, some of the people I've talked to that use Yelp, they barely have a website because Yelp is their, is like sort of their main place to go.
Right.
So I guess like anything else, I mean, what your takeaway is and what your experience is. Do you know what I mean?
It's a tough one. I think, one of the issues that comes up is how do you handle negative reviews? And I think, one key thing is that I've heard from business owners that you can't just let it sit there.
Right.
You got to manage it. And that happens, whether you're engaging with Yelp or not, that conversation is happening. You might as well be there and make the best of it, I think is the advice I've heard.
Agreed. I agree. So like I said, I mean, I kind of think it's a platform that you need to be on. And, obviously depending on your business, but if you're in retail and particularly the restaurant world, it's kind of a no brainer. And, listen, I mean, the company itself does what they can to support their customers. They seem like they do a good job. And I don't know. But like I said, there are people that definitely have a different opinion than that.
Yes, there are.
Fair enough.
All right. Here's a surprising take from Eugene. We've talked about this a little bit in the past, but you wrote recently that you think business owners are going to like the new fast food councils that California plans to implement to regulate the fast food industry.
Yeah. I just got, on Friday, I got an email from John Ahrensmeyer at the Small Business Majority, who, this is like a very good, organization that represents small businesses around the country. And, they're big supporters of it. And, he had emailed me, including me among a group of other people in his organization about it. Cause he was surprised as well. Like, I guess I give off this air of being like some alt-right Republican business owner.
Occasionally you do.
Occasionally do. But I don't know. I mean, I call him and say, listen, the bill is called AB 257. It goes into effect in January. What it does is for just the fast food industry in California, just that industry, it's creating a council of 10 representatives that include a couple of government appointed people, some people, industry representatives, worker representatives, and they're supposed to make the rules for that industry. And they're allowed to increase minimum wages up to like $22 an hour. They can make rules for safety and other types of employee and workforce regulations. And the theory is like whatever that industry council, that committee comes up with, the legislature will rubber stamp it and say, okay, that's what you guys want. We entrust it to you guys to do that. And people in the fast food industry are like up in arms about it. Not happy.
That includes the fast food companies themselves.
Yeah.
That includes franchisees.
Yeah. They're like, oh my God, we're going to be way more regulations. You're going to raise the minimum wage to $22 an hour. It's going to, send people out of the state. The fast food restaurants are going to disappear. And I think first of all, I think it's a bunch of bullshit. I mean, first of all, fast food is so cheap to begin with. And besides that, like McDonald's isn't going to disappear regardless of what McDonald's CEO says. I mean, have you ever had a Big Mac, Lauren? I mean, they're fucking delicious, right? I mean,
yes, I have had a Big Mac.
I mean, if they're going to raise the price of a Big Mac by $1 or $2, trust me, I'll still be eating a Big Mac, and so will most other people. So I don't think that's an issue.
Well, the other thing is, if everybody's minimum wage goes up across the industry,
yes,
you know,
it's a level playing field. It's a level playing field, and not only that, it is a theoretically, if minimum wages do go up, maybe it attracts better workers, happier workers. If workplace safety is better, it's all good stuff. Here's my take. If that may be the case, that may not be the case. I get it. Different people have different points of view, but like, I just the way it's always been with business, Lauren, right, is that you've got like the unions and the worker right people lobbying the politicians. And then you've got the industry PACs and lobbyists. They're going after the politicians, and they're all fighting to try and get the politicians to vote one way or another. And the politicians are idiots and they don't know the intricacies of a specific industry. So they're voting with half a brain, and it doesn't seem like a optimal system. And I think maybe for an industry, you say, listen, why don't you guys self-regulate? Like as we as politicians, we punt. We give you guys the ball. You have an organization made up that represents all sides. You guys agree on how things should be worked in your industry, and then come back to us, the politicians, and we'll sign off on that because you've gone off and you've done that. That way, we as the politicians don't have to get involved. To me, it seems like an interesting model to try. You know what I mean?
That makes sense to me. That's what I took from your column. It's a really good column. And as you point out, I mean, if it did happen to work, it probably would spread. It would be tried elsewhere. So it's worth paying attention to. But I think your thought was that the idea of putting smart people in a room who know the industry, who have a shot at working together and figuring something out that works for everybody, that could be a lot better than the mess you described, that happens now.
Right now. That's right. And yet, listen, there's a lot of, who's on this committee? How do they get appointed to it?
Well, those are the details that we'll have to see how it actually plays out.
Yeah. Who's paying off who? Who's sleeping with who? Who's screwing who? Who's whatever? How are they all getting on this whatever? And then, so there's all that issues going on. Do you know what I mean? And what I wrote in the comments, I just hope that the legislature in California can be flexible as well as the industry and figure this model out. Because I do think it could be something that could expand around the country.
I guess the thing that surprised me a little bit is not that you thought this was worth trying. It's your openness to regulation in general, and not reflexively go into the idea that the market will solve all problems.
No, I think it is the market, and I think it's.
Well, let me quote you here. Yeah. You wrote in your column, in fact, maybe an increase in wages and an improvement in working conditions will help those companies attract more talent and reduce turnover. At the very least, it may help reduce the number of hairs I routinely find in my chicken nuggets. And my question to you, Gene, is why isn't the market working there? Why are you still ordering chicken nuggets and hair?
Yeah, I agree. First of all, that was really that was a fabrication because I never order chicken nuggets. I mean, who orders unless you go to Chick-fil-A?
You just get the hair.
Yeah, no, I get burgers. I mean, that's my thing. But you get my point.
Yes. But that is a problem that the market should solve.
Yeah, it is. And I people say this is overregulation. I have the opposite view that I think it's less regulation. More regulation is politicians making the rules, here it's the industry is making the rules for itself, with a representation from all sides. And then they decide how they want the industry to be, mutually agree on that. I'd rather do that than politicians deciding. So like I said, and that's what was my takeaway from the very end of the column. I think it's worth a shot.
Right.
And before everybody just has this knee-jerk reaction. And I also think it was kind of smart to do it for a subset of the restaurant and food service industry. Like, we're just going to take fast food because obviously there's big companies there that can, absorb this. And if it works in this little area, maybe it could be a model that all industries, not just food service, can ultimately adopt instead of paying off politicians to, pass laws in their favor.
That makes a lot of sense to me. We can certainly all agree that there has to be a way to improve the way we do things now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Next topic. Let me start. You told us a few weeks ago that you're excited to see what Elon Musk does with Twitter.
Yeah.
Are you still feeling that way?
Oh yeah, 100%. 100%.
There are a lot of people who agree with you. There was a column in the New York Times on Friday written by their tech columnist about how popular what Elon Musk is doing in Silicon Valley among venture capitalists and founders. And
my biggest fear is that he just gets pissed off and bails because of whatever. And hopefully, because he's got to have a really thick skin. He is, first of all, he's been running Twitter now, Lauren, as we're speaking, about like 6 or 7 weeks. Okay. So like everybody's expecting, it's like a giant organization. So there's one, like he's running this. It's very early days that what he's doing.
It's impressive how much damage he's been able to do in those 6 or 7 weeks.
Stop. And the other thing that's also interesting to me is that I think like half of the employees have left Twitter, something like that. Like he pared down Twitter by,
I think maybe more.
I haven't noticed the fucking difference. I don't know if you have. I mean, I'm on Twitter all the time. It seems fine to me. Like I don't know. I'm not seeing it. The other thing that I also see is that Elon Musk he's making rules. It's tough because it's his business. So he's coming across dictatorial, but he's being consistent in the application of his rules. The most recent case happened last week where some journalists got suspended because he said he came up with a rule about doxing people. He suspended the kid with the airplane account that was tracking his airplane and other airplanes. He felt that was a safety issue. Right?
There's some issues about that, and he wasn't fully transparent about it. And by the way, doxing usually is meant to refer to something else. Doxing is about giving up personal details about someone's online credentials and life.
Well, I mean, giving up details of a person's real-time location is about as doxing as you can get. And that's what that was doing. And then these journalists are apparently them tweeting out like where you can get this information.
There's, that's disputed. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but that's not the view of those journalists, certainly, and a lot of other people.
I hear you. So, and we don't have to go down that rabbit hole. That was his view. Right. It's his company. It's his platform. I'm fascinated to watch him work it out. I think he's really enjoying it, which is astonishing to me considering the amount of abuse that he gets. The platform, what nobody really wants to admit is that there is free speech on this platform. He's allowing people are, criticizing him all the time. He's doing his thing. He's going to make his mistakes. I mean, I get that. But I just think that, this is what happens when a business owner takes over a business, Lauren. They have their own policies. They bring on their own team. They make their cuts. They add more people. They figure out where things are going to go. It doesn't happen in the public eye, and it doesn't get evaluated in minute detail, minute by minute, over the 6 weeks of ownership. It happens over years, And what I think a lot of people in the media don't understand, and I was just tweeting at this woman, she's a Washington Post woman, because she's criticizing and criticizing and criticizing. The woman's never run a business in her life, And like here she is sitting back and criticizing the way he's running Twitter. So number one, if you don't like it, get off of Twitter. But number two is like, this is what business owners do. They have to come up with new policies for their business. They have to implement change. Not everybody always likes this change. But he's got his plan and he's carrying that plan out. So
I'm not really sure I see a plan. It looks a little more random than that to me. I certainly agree with you. He bought it. He owns it. It's a private company. He has the right to do what he wants. I'm not sure he's improving the company.
Well, but Lauren, you have to see that, again, if you were privy to, the most confidential and private, activities going on in any company of that size where there's new ownership, you would see chaos, right? I mean, it's never pretty. There's mistakes are always made. People are always stumbling. Anybody who runs a business knows this. It ain't pretty, and it never is pretty. The thing is that what's different with Elon Musk is it's a public forum. It's very, very, high profile. So we're seeing all of his actions, whether we agree with them or not, in real time and in public, and that's why everybody can debate whether or not they think things are a mess or they're not. But I just think from anybody running a business, who's bought a company before, and I've been involved in plenty of transactions like that. It's just not. It's not unusual to see what's going on. That's all.
Well, I agree with you about the chaos. I've been in some situations that got chaotic, especially I've been at places, media companies that have been taken over. So you're right on target with all of that. I just don't see a plan here. I don't think he's improved his business. But, it's very possible there are things that I don't know and I'm not seeing. And yes, he deserves time and we will see where it goes.
I think it's absolutely certain that there are plenty of things that both you and I don't know.
Well, we know that's for sure.
Yeah. And I also think it's absolutely certain that he's got a plan. That's what I think. But
I hope you're right.
We'll see.
I hope you're right.
I'm enjoying it. And it's fun. It's fun to watch. And that was the final thing. Everybody's just got to calm the fuck down. It's Twitter. For God's sake.
I will say this. I don't think you have to be a business owner to criticize what he's doing. And maybe that's because I spent my career as a journalist.
No, well, the beauty of Twitter is it's free speech. Anybody can criticize, but whether or not they know what they're talking about is
well, that's true. But I think that you can. There's certainly steps he has taken that are open to criticism, I would say. But you have a big following on Twitter. You're using it the way you always have, and it's doing the same things for you.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I've seen absolutely Twitter's been fine for me. Even with half the amount of employees. And I wonder, that's the other thing that's on my list of things to write about, because you know how I love, writing about employees. And I always think about big corporations like that. And I've always made the claim that, like, if Microsoft were to cut 20% of its employees tomorrow, besides the PR damage that would do, I don't think anybody would notice. And which tells you a lot about what people are doing. And that's exactly what Elon Musk did.
Well, and that's part of the reason why he's being celebrated in Silicon Valley. And I can understand that. I respect that. I think if he's contractually obligated to pay severance, he should probably pay that severance. Yeah. And that's an issue. He should do it right. But trying to run the business more efficiently, I mean, sure. Who can argue with that?
Yeah, you can. And you got to say, like, what were all these people doing? I mean, this happened weeks ago, and I haven't seen a blip in Twitter.
Well, I've seen some blips. I've seen some pornography show up in my Twitter feed, which I've never seen before.
This will happen once in a while.
maybe to you, Gene. I don't know. Last topic.
Yep.
Last January, you predicted that blockchain would be the story of the year.
Yeah.
And given what's happened of late, that's looking like a pretty good prediction to me. So I'm tempted to ask you, do you have a prediction for what the story of next year is going to be?
I do, Lauren. In fact, I'm going to be writing about this this week in The Guardian. My prediction is one word, and that is interest. That will be the story for small businesses in 2023, will be interest.
Interesting.
Because it is going to be a very rough year for financing for businesses. And I don't think a lot of people appreciate that because we're so used to reasonable rates of interest. But the Fed is going to, they've already increased their rate. The Fed funds rate was 0.25% in March, and now it's like over 5%, and it's going to continue to go up. But there's more rate increases planned. Even if those rate increases don't happen, the average commercial loan, particularly for a typical smaller mid-sized business, is hovering around double digits now. That's what my clients are seeing. And that has had it's going to have an enormous impact on your cost of capital. It's going to have an enormous impact on businesses' ability to expand and grow and finance, and an enormous impact on startups that want to get into the business, because obviously, banks themselves are going to be retracting because of their increased costs. So I think 2023 is going to be a year about interest and financing and the challenges that businesses are going to be facing. I do think that interest rates are going to turn around at some point, Lauren, but not until later on, much later in the year.
Are you hearing this from your clients already? Yeah. Are they already adjusting because of the higher rates?
See, a lot of businesses, they have working capital loans, right? So they have lines of credit. Lines of credit are always variable interest rates. It's always like prime plus 2 points or 3 points or whatever. And you need working capital to buy, buy inventory and, pay people and fund operations. And I'm seeing more and more of my clients being like, holy shit, my working capital, payments are going up a lot because interest rates are going up. And then I've got other clients that before, they have opportunities. They want to buy a piece of equipment now. They want to expand on their property, or they want to do things like that. Now they're much more hesitant to do that because the cost of it has become that much more. We're already seeing that in a big way, obviously, in the technology industry. The tens of thousands of layoffs that we've seen is because all these startups have been told by their investors and VC firms that, sorry, we're not just, funding losses going forward. We can't afford it because of the environment that we're in. And that's going to roll into most traditional industries as well in 2023. It's going to make it a lot tougher for businesses. That's what I predict.
Any suggestions for the kind of businesses like your clients that are trying to figure out how to work in this new environment?
I do. Obviously, the standard cash flow, watch your pays and overhead and all that. But if you're looking for financing, the best place to go still is the Small Business Administration, the SBA. Not like you're going to be getting such great deals on interest, but if you go to an SBA lender and you can persuade them to slog through the paperwork, it is guaranteed, I think, 80% from the government, so they're more inclined to give out that money, and they have quotas to fill. The other that's out there's going to be another big year of funding from the State Small Business Credit Initiative. I think you and I talked about that before. That's $10 billion that's coming this year and next. It's coming over a period of time. And
is it actually coming now? Is that?
Yeah, it's coming now. Oh yeah. I mean, a third of it now I think has been funded. But obviously more to come in the next year. So
if somebody wants to see that's done state by state, if somebody's looking for it in their area,
Google State Small Business Credit Initiative and your state. So State Small Business Credit Initiative, Arizona,
and that can come in all different forms, right? It can be loans, it can be grants.
So what that'll do is that'll drive you most likely to your state's website, because the states are getting the money and then they're turning around and then giving it out to organizations that support small businesses. And it is, you can get money in the form of loans, grants, or equity investments. And I've said this before, this is not a minority business thing. Yes, there is definitely some preferential for minorities in these type of funding, but there's plenty of funding for non-minority owned businesses as well. So it's out there for small businesses. And I think that will be a good resource for businesses in 2023. That's what I'm going to recommend.
That's a great suggestion. Gene Marks is a CPA who writes weekly on small business for The Guardian, The Hill, The Philadelphia Inquirer, The Washington Times, The Chicago Daily Herald, Forbes, and Entrepreneur. And you run a business too, right? I never completely.
And it's been pretty good business this year. I was looking at our numbers.
I'm glad to hear that. That's great.
Who knew?
You can also hear him on ABC Radio's Eye on the World with John Batchelor. Gene hosts 2 small business podcasts with Paychex Corporation and The Hartford. Gene, it's been a pleasure talking to you all year. This is our last podcast of the year.
Oh, Lord. Well, okay. Well, I look forward to talking to you all throughout 2023 as we navigate that era of higher interest rates.
That sounds great to me, except for the higher interest rate part. Yeah. But we'll talk again in a few weeks. Happy holidays, everyone. We'll see you again in January.
Take care.